said one of the boys. "Look!" When the reality of what had happened set in, the ribbing began. Only James Harrison would run into the back of an ambulance. These were the kind of scrapes and scares that punctuated James Harrison's boyhood. But when he landed back in the hospital in 1951, it was for something far more serious than bruises, cuts, and bad colds. James, now 14, had caught something he couldn't shake. A bug had turned into bronchitis and then triple pneumonia. Penicillin was doing nothing to prevent the infection from spreading from one lung to the other. The tissue of James's lungs was inflamed, and he coughed constantly, complaining of sharp chest pains. James was transported to St. Vincent's Hospital in Sydney in a bid to save his life. There, James's mom and dad, Peggy and Reginald, met with a young surgeon, Harry Windsor, who had honed his skills as a doctor during World War II, serving mostly in New Guinea with the Australian Army Medical Corps. Dr. Windsor had made a name for himself at St. Vincent's through his pioneering work in heart valve surgeries. He had established the thoracic surgery department and even organized the hospital's staff cricket team, serving as coach. He endeared himself to his surgery patients by sleeping next to their beds. But the operation involving young James would be Dr. Windsor's first pediatric pulmonary lobectomy, and James was in bad shape. The lobectomy of the lung was a surgical operation to remove an infected or diseased portion of the lung. Dr. Windsor was not certain whether the boy would make it. "I've got my lucky penny," James told the doctor when they met, showing him a flattened coin. He explained that he and his friends would wait for the trains of Junie to get close before placing pennies on the tracks and watching them get squashed. The boys had pockets full of squashed pennies. James charmed doctors and nurses alike with his chatter and good spirits. In the days leading up to the surgery, James endured relentless tests, gagging every time antiseptic was sprayed into his mouth and closing his eyes when exploratory tubes were pushed down his throat. The tubes felt larger than his throat. When they were removed, James could finally uncurl his fists and run his fingers over his flat penny. The nurses came to him every day for blood draws. Of the 4 major blood groups, A, B, AB, and O, James was universal blood type O negative, the blood of choice in emergency rooms and for use in transfusions. Just 7% of the population has O negative blood. With no major blood group antigens, O negative blood is the ideal for recipients with any blood type. But James, as O negative, could only safely receive transfusions of O negative blood. The positive or negative factors on one's blood were determined by a protein called the Rh factor, which can be present, positive, or absent, negative, creating the 8 most common blood types of A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, O positive, O negative, AB positive, AB negative. Compatible blood for transfusions meant the difference between life and death. The nurses complimented James on his prominent veins. He may have been weak and pale and prone to coughing bouts that were exhausting even to watch, but his veins were as strong as the Australian sun in summertime, he was told. The nurses did their best to distract him from the tubes and needles by asking about girls, cricket, tennis, and school. James didn't mind having a gaggle of pretty nurses around, and he told them stories of how he earned pocket change by selling the eggs of his family's chickens to refugees who'd arrived in Junie after the war. He talked gaily about his mishaps and adventures, including the time he'd scared his mother nearly to death by flinging himself across the train track.